Stream will be starting in a moment. Okay, so we are live now. And for this project, for this video, for this stream, we're going to be taking a look at the New York Times API once again, and specifically we're going to be looking for the articles API. And basically, as you can tell, we're just going to be returning some kind of image with a title and some text and some description of what the article is about. And I think this will be for articles from today backwards, I think so. I haven't really taken much of a look to it, but basically we are going to follow the same process if you watched the last stream and the last YouTube video. So first of all, I'm going to start with going to create a new application. So you have to sign in first of all. If you don't have an account with New York Times, you have to sign in and create an account and validate your email. And then once you sign in, you can just come right here and create a new application. And you can see I was fiddling around with it. I created a new application called TNews, where this is now my API key, but I'm not going to use this for now. Instead, I'm going to create a new application. So I'm going to say new app. And then for the app name, I'm just going to say T articles, right? The description isn't necessary, so I'm not going to place it. And then we're going to be dealing with the article search API. So I'm going to enable it right there. And then I'm going to say create. Oops. App could not be created. Why? Did I do something wrong? App could not be created. Let's say test. Let's say test. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Let me reload the page. Reload this page. Sign in. Really? It's still not signed in. What's happening with this thing? What is happening? Okay, there you go. So I'm signed in, and let me go and create a new application. Or rather, let me delete this. Oh, you know what? You know what? Let me not delete it. I'm just going to create a new application. Say new app. Say T articles, like that, and let me just say articles app. And then the article search API, I'm going to enable it once again and then create. And this should create a new application for me. So app created, and you can see this is now my API key, and I have a secret as well. And basically this is our app ID, which I'm not really going to use. Okay, so before I continue, I just want to say that I've already canvassed my React application. So the React application is called nytimes-app. And as you can see on the top, what I did was npx create react app nytimes-app. And that's basically it. Once it finishes running, this is all that we're going to get. So right away, I'm going to cd into nytimes-app. And then I'm going to open Visual Studio Code. And then I can now close this window. Close this window. And then I'm going to go back into this APIs, into our API, so that we can take a look at this. So I'm going to copy this first of all because we need it. And then in VS Code, I'm just going to create a new file. Just paste that in so that I don't have to keep coming back to this page to copy it. And then I'm going to go into APIs tab right there and go into article search API. And you can see they give an example call of what really well, the kind of data that we're going to get back from the API. And you can see at the end it says your key. So your key here, you're going to substitute it with your API key that you've just generated. And I think even if you were to copy this down, of course it would take a moment, but if you were to copy this and use it, I think it would still work. I'm not sure, but I think so. But I generally recommend that you get a new API key for yourself. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to copy it, paste it right there, and I'm going to explain why. And then I'm just going to go to this, navigate to this, and change this in my address bar to my API key, which is this that I need to copy. So copy that, paste it inside there, and we should get back some data. And I'm using a JSON formatter, that's why my the JSON data appears like this. So you can see that the status is okay, meaning it's a status 200 HTTP request, a GET request. We have a copyright there that we're not really going to use, and we have the response. And you notice that the response is an object that has an array called docs. So inside this array, we have the abstract, which is basically like the title of the article. We have the web URL, which is the actual source of the article. We have a snippet here. We have a lead paragraph. We have print section, print page, the source, which is basically New York Times for every article inside here, basically. And then we have multimedia, which has all of this. And then if we scroll down quite a bit, right about here, we have the published date, we have the document type, the news desk, we have the section name, we have the subsection name, and finally we have the byline, which is basically who wrote the article. I think once we have all of that, I think that will be our data structure here, because this starts again. So that's basically all the data that we're going to need. So why was I copying this? And I need this page to be open as it is right there. So the reason why I was copying this is because it's not a good idea to commit your API keys to GitHub. So we would like a way to hide it when we commit this to GitHub. And we can do that by going into the root of our application and creating a hidden file called .env, which we have to hide in our gitignore. So if you go into gitignore and just place it somewhere there and say ignore the .env file as well, once you save it, you'll notice that it becomes grayed out like that. So everything inside this file is not going to be committed to GitHub, and this is where we'd like to place our API key. So I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to say react underscore app and articles API key equals to this, to my API key. So I'm going to save that. Now the reason why I was copying this is because in our application I would like to substitute this with our API key. Now NodeJs provides a way to do this using process.env, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So right away, let me close this. Right away, I'm going to go into my source folder, and I'm going to create, I'm not yet started my server, because of, if I had to start my server before Node.js can process this, as well as the excuse me, if I had to start the server before Node.js can process this .env file, then it will just throw me an error, which I want to avoid. So I want to create some basic layout of our application before we start our server, so that we avoid that error. So what I'm going to do is inside my app.js, I'm going to delete all of this, and I'm going to return a fragment. And inside here, I'm going to return a div. How do I structure this? I'm going to return a div, right? Rather than a div, let me just say a section. And then I'm going to remove these two from the top, and I'm going to say import React from React. And then we need a few things as well. We need the use state, which we'll use to set up our state values. And then we'll get the useEffect hook as well, which we'll use to fetch our data basically from the API. And that's where we're going to substitute our API key from the one that is in the .env file. So right away, let me change this to an arrow function. Change this to an arrow function like that. And right away, I'm going to set up my state values, where I'm going to say articles and set articles. This will be use state, and by default, it's going to be an empty array, because once we fetch the data, we're going to be populating it with this docs array. So it's going to be populating this empty array. So that's why you have an empty array to start with. And then another thing that I want to do is I want to be able to place a search box, so that, let me go back into this file. You'll notice that we have article search.json and then a query here that says election. So if I were to change this query to something like politics, for example, then I want to be able to rerun this get request with our API key so that we get articles about politics. So this next state value that I'm going to set is going to be controlling the query that we're going to place inside here. So I'm going to say const, what should I call it? Const term and set term that, and this will be use state. And by default, because by default I want to fetch let me say articles from about everything really, then I'm going to set my state value into a string called everything like that. Okay, so once we do that, then I want to set up one final state value which will control our loading animation. So I'm going to say const is loading and set is loading, and this is going to use state, and by default it's going to be true, because anytime that I'm not displaying any data on the screen, then I want to show a loading animation. And then once we fetch our data from the API, then I want to remove the loading animation, so we're going to be targeting this function and set it to false. And right away, let me set up my use effect. So I'm going to say use effect, set up a callback function, and an this should be curly brackets, and an empty dependency array. Empty for now. It's empty for now. We're going to set it into this term once we set up our form to search. So inside this form, I'm going to place a try catch block, and inside here I'm just going to console error the error. So console error the error, and then I'm going to say inside my try block, I'm going to say const fetch articles, and fetch articles is going to be an asynchronous function. So this should be async, and an arrow function where I'm going to say const response. Let me just call it res equals to await fetch, and we're going to be fetching the URL. So I'm going to place it inside backticks so that I'm able to use variables inside the string. So I'm going to go inside this and just copy this, and we no longer need this file, so don't save that. And I'm going to paste it inside here. Now remember that I want to substitute this term right here for what we have inside here. So what I'm going to do is just grab this and remove it, and I'm going to set up a variable using $ and curly brackets like that, and set that to the term right there. So I'm going to say term. What this means basically is that the query here will be substituted to whatever term that we have inside our use state. And I'm going to show you that in a moment, but let's deal with our process.env first. So in order to access our API key from our .env file, then we need to target this variable, right? So I'm going to copy this down, and once again I'm going to remove this, place in my $ and curly brackets, and I'm going to say process.env and then paste that in, which is the name of our variable. Okay, so once we do this, this means that it's going to run this request right here. It's going to substitute the query term for everything that we have for the term everything, which is basically our state value inside there. And then once it reaches the API key, NodeJs is going to access the React App Articles API key from our .env file that we have right there. So before I save this file and start our server, what I want to do is just outside this, I'm going to say const articles equals to await res.json like that, and then I'm going to say console log the articles to see what we get back. So console log the articles, and then I need to call this function. So where does this function end? Is it here? Fetch articles. Nope. What did I do wrong? Oh, I did this wrong. Okay, this shouldn't be inside the try block, this should be outside it, and then this bracket should go down there. Is that correct? Is that correct? If it's wrong, we'll know in a moment. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to start my server. So npm start, and then this should fetch. Once our server starts, then we should be able to see something on the screen on localhost 3. 1000. And sometimes my machine takes a while to run this, so we might sit here in some awkward silence for a moment. Okay, so our dev server is up and running, or almost up and running. It's still loading. It's taking quite a while. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to open up my console right there, and we should get an object, which is basically correct. And you'll notice that it's an object, and this is also an object. And then we have copyright, we have the response, and we have the docs, which is basically our array that we want to target. So the next thing that we need to do is get this from the console and get it to display on the screen. So what I'm going to do is, let me close this. So what I want to do is after we console log this, then I would like to populate this empty array. And I can do that by saying set articles into articles dot, and the reason for dot is because I want to access the response object and then access the docs array. Okay, so I'm going to say dot response dot docs, which will now populate this empty array in the use state with our docs array that we get from our data. So once I save that, and just to show you that it works, I'm also going to console log response dot docs like that, and we should get an array of 10 items. There you go. So this is working, and now this has been populated. Our set articles state value has been populated with basically our docs array. Okay, so once I do that, then I'm going to go inside my section right there, and I'm going to say what do I want to say? I want to map over my data, so I'm going to say articles dot map, and then say for every article I'm going to return an arrow function, and I'm going to destructure quite a few things, and these will be coming from article. And I want to destructure, let's see, the abstract, we want the byline, the headline. Okay, headline is also here. Let's see, headline, where is headline? Okay, there you go. Okay, so let's just begin to destructure our abstract, our headline. We have our byline, and remember our byline has objects inside it, so I want to be able to destructure those objects. So I'm going to place a full colon and then place other curly brackets, and I'm going to destructure the original, which is basically the name of the person. Where is it? Byline. So the original is the name of the person who wrote the article. And then once we get the abstract, the byline, and the headline, we want the lead paragraph. So we also need to destructure lead underscore paragraph. And then we need the news desk, And then once we get the news desk, we need the section name probably. So section name, and then we need section name, web URL. Yeah, there it is, web URL, and then the ID. So section underscore name, web underscore URL, and then underscore ID, which will be our unique key value. And then finally, I saw something I wanted, and I want the word count. So I'm going to say word underscore count like that. And then once I get all this data, then I want to structure how I want to display it. So I'm going to return an article with the key of underscore ID like that. And then once I get these articles, then I just want to start displaying my data. So I'm going to say I want to return an h2 that says the headline like that. And then below this h2, and I've just remembered that we don't really have access to these images. You can see the images are sort of stored like in a local repository or something. So even if I were to get this image from here, all it would do is show like a small bitmap image, which it doesn't really look nice. That's why I've not destructured the image from here. Okay, so what do we need? we need the headline, and then we have, isn't the abstract the same as the okay, yeah, we need a paragraph that says the abstract, right? Abstract. And then once we get the abstract, we need an href that goes to the actual URL. So I'm going to say web underscore URL, and then set the target to equal underscore blank, which will open it up on a new page. And then here I'm just going to say web resource like that. And then once we get this, then what do we need to do next is, oh, this is the lead paragraph. Wait a minute, isn't the lead paragraph the same as the abstract? Lead paragraph is this, and then this is the abstract. Okay, they're not the same. So what I want to do is, for the abstract, I'm going to return an h4, and then below this, I'm going to return a paragraph that says lead paragraph, like that. And then this is news desk section name and the byline. Okay, so once I do that, then I want to return a ul with list items. How many are they? They are 1, 2, 3, and 4, like that. The first one would say original, which is basically the name of the person. The second one will say news desk, like that. The third one will say section underscore name. And then finally, we are going to have word count. So let me save this and let's see what we get back in our application. Oops. I'm seeing 21 errors. Objects are not valid as React. Ooh. I'm waiting for the error. Found. Set articles into articles dot response. Did I do this wrong? What did I do wrong? Set articles into articles dot response dot docs. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Let me remove this console log. Articles equals to await res.json, which is basically this, and then set articles into articles.response.docs, right? And then console error the error. Okay, then we're fetching the articles. Okay, and then we're saying articles.map. What's the object that we're trying to access that it's telling us this? Let's see. Dot response dot docs. Okay, so I can see that this is running. This is running, which means our console log right here was working. Right, so our console log was working. So probably our issue would come somewhere here. Is it probably on the byline where I destructured it? Let me remove all this. Let's see. And our application works. So that means likely I destructured the byline wrongly. So let's see. Byline. I'm getting the byline and I want the original. Isn't that correct? So I'm getting the byline, right? And then I want the original. Okay. What was it? Where's my byline? I don't even have my byline inside here. Okay, here it is. Let me see if I disable that. What happens if I disable that? Okay, so it's not this. Let me disable this. And it's not that. Wait, what? What? Let me go on a bigger screen. What? We have article.map. We have article. Okay. We have abstract. We have headline. Original. We have our return. Objects are not valid as React child. Found object with keys main. Okay, I get you now. I get you. Let me just confirm where we have underscore ID. That doesn't look right. I mean, it looks right, but it doesn't look right in my application. Underscore ID. Let me change this to something else. Let me change this to abstract. Let's see if this works. Still nothing. Still nothing works. The above error occurred in the H2 component. Why didn't I see this? Headline. Headline is an object. Headline is an object. Headline is an object. Okay. Okay, so there we are. Took a moment to find, so I need to destructure the main inside the headline. So I'm just going to save press a full colon and save main. So that inside here, I'm going to return main instead of headline. It takes a while sometimes, but you know, it works. So reload this and get rid of the errors. Encountered two children, the same key. Let me turn this key to underscore ID so that we no longer have that error. And there we go. Okay. So now that we got something displaying on the screen, what I want to do is grab Tailwind CSS from cdnjs.com. So grab Tailwind CSS, copy the link tag, go inside my public folder and inside index.html. What? Okay. It hung there for a moment. I thought it crashed. Remove these comments, remove this, and then just place this here. And then grab this, remove it, change this to nytimes articles, like that, and then change this theme color to white, like that. So save that, and then this should reflect in our application right there. So the document now goes into the title, sorry, now says nytimes articles. Okay. So what do we need to do now? I want to add a div inside here, and this div will have a class of showcase, and then I'm going to add another div inside with a class of overlay with an h1 that says you are, or rather let's say viewing articles or articles about, and then I'm going to explain what I'm going to place inside here. And then right inside here, then we're going to have our form, which we haven't created yet, but I'm going to create it after we style this component a bit better. So inside this h1, I want the h1 to say whatever term it is that we have passed inside here, or we are searching for inside here, or the default term that is inside here. So for example, all I have to do is just say I want the term really, term like that. Once I save this, then it should say viewing articles about everything. So I'm going to save that, and we should see viewing articles about everything right there. So if I were to change everything now, just to prove to you that this actually works, notice that we are viewing articles about everything, which is basically something of something. So if I change this to election, then we should see articles about election, because this election now gets substituted inside this term, and which will get updated, and this will get rerun, and this should now also say election. So I'm going to view, it says viewing articles about election right there, and as you can see, it's automatically going about election somewhere there, voter election somewhere there, election in the Senate, you know. And so that proves that our state values are functioning. So let me just tell this up a bit. Close this, place this to the side, close it down like that. And first of all, I want this to have a background image. So let me go into pexels.com, pexels.com, and grab news. Let me search for news and just grab something like what? I can grab this. This looks nice. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to copy the image address, and then inside my index CSS, because I want this to be a background image, I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to remove this and this, and I'm going to target the showcase class, and I'm going to set the background to URL like that, and place it inside strings, and set this to no repeat, and center and cover, and then set the height to 300 pixels. So once I save this, then we should see it reflecting right there. Okay, so we have our background image, which looks nice. Let me change this to 400 pixels like that. And then I'm going to target the overlay class inside the showcase. So showcase overlay, and I'm going to say the background color for this should be RGBA 0000.5, which is basically a transparent black. And then I'm going to set the height to 400 pixels as well, and then display flex, align item center, and justify content center, which will then bring this right at the center right there. And I'm going to set the flex direction to column, because once we add our form, then I don't want this to be side by side by the form. Instead, I want them to be in column form. So I'm going to save that, and then this should come right there with a dark background image. So let me reduce this to 0.4. And I realize I'm talking a bit faster, so sorry for that in case you are not following. Basically, all we were doing is I added a background image, and then I set the height to 400 pixels, which is basically the height from here up to here. And then I'm going inside the overlay class, which contains the text with our h1, and we're going to add the form in a moment. And then once you do that, then I'm also setting the height to 400 pixels, because I'm already adding a background color on this, and I want it to take up the same height as the image does, so that it has this transparent black or almost translucent black. And then display flex, flex direction column, and align item center, and justify content center just makes sure that the div is aligned vertically and horizontally to the center, as you can see right there. So that's basically all I was doing. Okay, and let me see if this can be to the right on smaller screens, so that it moves just a bit to the right. And then I'm going to go inside my h1 inside here, give this a class name of text for XL, and font bold and text white like that, and then say text center like that, and then say margin bottom of 4 for our margin when we add the form, and then go inside this overlay and say padding on the X of 5, just so that in case you're viewing on a smaller screen, it has a bit of space between the margin and the text. Okay, so let's tell this section. So inside this section, I'm just going to say give this a class name of what should I say, padding on the X of 5, and padding on the Y, or sorry, padding on the top of 10, padding on the bottom of 20. Yeah, that should be correct, so that we have this space right there. Excuse me. And then once I do this, then I'm going to target my h2 inside here, give this a class name of font bold and text for XL as well, too big to XL. That's nice for smaller screens. Okay, and then just say margin bottom of 2, pushes it down just a bit from this. And then let me go inside here and give this a class of grid, and grid columns dash 1 and a gap of 10, because it's really confusing me. I don't know where each of these articles end, so add a grid gap to separate them just a bit. Okay, so this web resource link, I want to push it to the bottom right here, so I'm going to target it, grab this and just press alt, hold down alt and just press the down key to move it down like that, and it should move down right there. And then I'm going to give this a class name of underline, so that it has an underline, so that we know that this is a link. So it's looking nice. And then inside this UL, I'm going to give this a class name of margin Y of 4. So pushes it away from the top and bottom right there. And then I'm going to say inside this, I'm going to say news desk, add a flag so that we know why we are saying Washington. And this will be section name, like that. And then this is word count, like that. Okay, looking nice. Let me place this inside a span inside here, and grab this as well, place it inside a span, and grab this as well and place it inside a span. And then I'm going to grab these 3 spans because they are also going to have the same styling of font bold, like that. Okay, there you go, looking almost nice. So let's see. I think this looks nice, really. Let me see. Let me add this is the abstract, the h4. Oh, this is an h4. Okay, instead of this being an h4, let me make it into a paragraph because it's so much easier. It's more of a paragraph, really. That's what I mean. And then let me add a class name here, or rather, you know what, this looks fine. This looks fine in terms of a news article. And then let me go into my body and give this body a background color of dark gray. So background color of, let me see, a dark gray, not a dark gray really, but a light gray. And then go back into app.js, and inside this article, I'm going to give this article a class name of bg white, so that it stands out from the gray background color. And then I'm going to say padding on the y of 5 and padding on the x of rather padding on the y of 10 and padding on the x of 5, so that it pushes inwards just like that. And then say rounded large, so that the borders around here have rounded borders. So that's what we have currently. It's looking nice, looking very nice. Okay, so what is remaining? Let me add a bit more margin between these headings. And which one was it? Here. Let me say 5. Okay. So what is remaining for this screen is basically just to scale it up. And scaling it up is going to be easy, where I just want to target this H1, for example. And I'm going to go and say this H1, and I'm going to say that for large screens, I want the text to be, let's say 6XL. Make it bigger, right about there. And then also increase the sizes for this. So I'm going to go inside, what was this? This is an H2, and I'm going to say that for large screens, once again, increase the text to 2XL. Let's see how this looks. Did I do that correctly? Oh, it's already 2XL, so let's say 4XL. 4XL, okay. And then I want to limit these articles to a specific portion of the screen, so that they don't go all the way end to end, because this is really hard to read if your eyes are going to be going end to end. So what I want to do is, for large screens right there, I'm going to go inside this article, and I'm going to say large. I want the width to be let's say 9/12, which is 75% of the screen, which should reduce it, as you can see. And then for large screens, once again, I'm going to say MX auto, which will now center this article right there. Look at that, looking very nice. Even on bigger screens, looking nice. Okay, okay. So once we do this, then the only thing that I think we're remaining with is just to implement our form. Okay, so let's do that right away. And I'm going to create a new component inside my source folder, close this down. And I'm just going to call this SearchForm.js like that. And I'm going to say array-fce. And we're importing the search form. And what do we need to import? We need to import the use state because I want state to be managed by the form locally. So use state, excuse me. And I'm going to set up my state values right away. And I'm going to say const, what should I call this? Text, and set text. And this will be equal to use state. And by default, it's going to be an empty string. Okay, so once I do that, then I want to create the form, and I'm going to create a form right there with no action. And I'm going to create an input, and the input will be type of text, and with a placeholder that says, let's say e.g. politics right there. And then we're going to have a submit button, a button of type submit, just saying search right there. Is that it? Let's save that and let's render it to see how it looks. So right, where was it? Where did I have my comment for the form? Right here. So I'm going to remove this comment and I'm going to say search. Oops. I want to render my search form component. Really? I want to render my search form component. So I'm just going to say search form. And once I click enter, then it should import it automatically for me right there. Okay, so we have our search form. Let me save that and let's see how it looks. We should have an input right there and then a search button right there. So let's style out the button a bit. I'm going to give this a class name of bg green dash 400. Let's say padding on the y of 1, padding on the x of 2, and rounded borders, so rounded large. And then let's say text white. And then let's go inside the input, give this a class name of padding y of 1, padding x of 2, like the button. And then, oh, I've just realized I don't want the left border radius on the button. So what I'm going to do is go inside the button right here, or right here, sorry, and then say rounded dash right dash large, which should remove this border radius right there. And then for the input, I'm going to do the opposite, where I'm going to say rounded dash left dash large, like that. There you go. So we have our input right there. And then we have our search button right there. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but I've clicked the button and it has reloaded. And I've just realized that I didn't add our loading animation. So let me do the loading animation first. So remember, we set up some state values for loading and is loading and set is loading, sorry. So what I want to do is the loading animation is dependent on this, because this is where this is the structure of our data, how we are representing this on the device. So I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to place some curly brackets inside here, and I'm going to do a conditional. So where I'm going to say if is loading is true, then I want to say wait a minute, what? Wait. Oh yeah, okay. If is loading is true, then I want to return an h1 that says loading dash dash dash. And then once it's false, then I just want to return everything that we have inside here. And remember that is loading is set to true by default right here. So if I save this, then we'll only see loading on the screen right there. Let me tell this to be bigger. Give this a class name of text center, margin top of 20, font bold, and text 4XL, 8XL, 6XL. Okay, so by default, because it's true, then we have loading. So we want that when we fetch our data, then we want to set is loading to false, so that this no longer shows and instead this section with our data shows. So just to show you what I mean, if I change this to false, you'll notice that loading it goes away and then we get our data. But we don't want to do this manually. So what we're going to do is once we fetch our data right there, and once we have populated our state values, then we just go below this and say set is loading to false, like that. And you'll notice that, see that if I reload, we have a loading animation, and then once everything is loaded, then we have our data displayed. So that's simple, it's just that. And then another thing that I want to do is, by default, I don't want to reload the page every time I click this. So what I'm going to do is inside the form, I'm going to place an onSubmit event, onSubmit, and I'm going to place it a function, and I'm going to call this function handle submit. And right away, I'm going to create this function where I'm going to say const handle submit equals to, and oops, this is an arrow function, equals to, and we're targeting the synthetic event of e, where we're going to say, oops, where we're going to say e dot prevent default, like that. So that once I save this and I try to submit this again, you'll notice that it no longer reloads. It no longer reloads because we are preventing the default. Now, one thing that I want to do is inside the input, we want to have an onChange attribute, so that every time that the input changes inside here, then our form will manage the local state. And then once we submit it, then it's going to search for articles with whatever input we have inside there. So I'm going to say onChange equals to, and I'm going to place it in an inline function where we're targeting the e event once again right there. And I'm going to say once we target the e, the synthetic event of e, then I'm going to say set text, which is our state value right there. So we're going to say set text into e.target.value, which will basically give us whatever is typed in. And just to show you that it works, I'm going to go on a bigger screen right there and open up my console, and I'm going to open up my components tab. Oops, there you go, components tab. It took a while to load. And remember, this is now our form that we have. And notice that the state is currently empty because by default we have set it to empty. But if I come and change this to election, for example, you notice that it's now changed to whatever we have inside there. So that means that this event.target.value is actually working. Okay, so what do we need to do next? What we need to do next is once we have rendered our form right here, then we want to pass in some props which will target this, the term that is inside here, and then we can now destructure the prop from here. We can now destructure it into the actual component, and then we will set whatever we are destructured inside here so that it will go inside the input and when it reloads. That explanation confused me. Okay, let me try again. Inside our app.js, we are going to pass in some props inside our search form component so that the props are going to be targeting this term, our state value of term, which is inside here, and it's going to be checking for whether we have changed the term or not, so that when we submit the form, then all of this is going to be run once again, and then it will only return the results containing the term that we entered inside the form. I think that's a much better explanation. Okay, what props do we have inside here? Let me get out my cheat sheet. And we have search text. So I'm going to say search text, and we're going to set this to we're going to set it to text, which is basically the state value that we have inside here, remember. And then once we set this to text, then we want to say we are targeting the text, we are targeting the text that we have inside here. And once we target the text, then we want to say we want to target our set term function inside here and set that term into the text that we get from the input. So I'm going to say set term into the text. Is that correct? If it's not correct, we're going to know in a moment. Now, once we do this, it means that we can now access this prop from our component. Let me save this. We can now access this prop from our component. Did this crash? Okay, did not. And we can destructure it inside here by saying search text like that. And then inside our handle submit, then we just want to say search text. We change it into the we pass in the text that we have our state value, right? So this means that this prop is coming from right here, search text, which means that whenever this text changes, then this prop is going to be targeted, and it's going to call on this input once again, which will change our which will make this function run once again. But all is not complete yet. All is not complete. Remember that all of this is dependent on the dependency array that we have inside here. And what we want to rerun whenever all of this is called on once again is the term. So all we have to do is just pass in the term inside here and then save it. And then let's see if this works. And let's see Joe Biden. Let's see, it says showing results about Joe Biden, and there you go, we have results about Joe Biden. So it's looking nice. But one thing that I want to do is now change this into capitalized text so that we have capitalization for every word. So I'm going to go inside this H1, and right before my media query here, I'm going to say capitalize like that. We should now capitalize it like that. So if I were to say animals, it updates the state inside here because we have term right there. So it updates the state, and we have results about animals. And if I were to search for wildlife, then we have results about wildlife, looking very, very nice. And what else can we search for? AOC. I like AOC. Let's search for AOC. Let's see. You see AOC. Anyway, you can read those articles by yourself. And of course, just to make sure all of these articles do work, but remember, we're using the New York Times API, so they will always take you to the New York Times API, the New York Times website, I mean. So you see that everything is always about the New York Times website. Even this one will take you to the New York Times website, but then it knows, it shows really the type of article that you're looking at. So I think that will basically be it. I think that's a very good project. We have implemented our search right there. We have implemented, you know what, let me see if I can change this background image to the top. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to grab this, or rather I'm going to grab this and then add a media query. Oops, at media min width of, let's say, around 1024 pixels. Oops, I want to change this, really. I want to target the showcase and change this to top instead of right. We should do that so we have some kind of article on the background that looks as if we are reading something. So I'm going to save that, and that's, I think that will basically be it for this project. It's looking quite nice, Now remember that from our API, as I'd explained earlier, is that we can't really access these images because they're technically not links to the images. Instead, they're just like some stored local value. If I get a way to access these images, then be sure that I'll do a follow-up for this video where I'm going to show you how to do it. But remember that if you're doing anything, all you need to do is practice, and some more practice. You just need to get used to doing things by yourself, because you can't really depend on tutorials all your life. So this actually works really nice, and I really love it. Elections, it's looking very nice, if I do say so myself. Looking very nice. So thank you guys for watching. Once again, if you're watching on YouTube, remember to leave a like and subscribe, leave a comment. Oh, I would really like to know how you found out about me, because I realized that I was checking some analytics the other day, and I realized that my viewers are from all over the world, and I would really like to know how you really came to know of me or found my channel, whether by accident or not. And once you do that, remember to remember to subscribe to the channel as well, and leave a like and share the video. So thank you guys for watching, thank you guys for following the stream, and I will see you in the next video.